All right. Hello, everyone. Everything all at once. Playing everything all at once. Melodic fingerstyle. That's what our task is for this class. Hey, Mopar. Hey, Guitar Pretender. Good to have you here. I'm Steve Yulberg, and I'm glad to be doing this class with you. I love playing fingerstyle. It was the whole reason I wanted to play guitar to begin with. Fingerstyle guitar just means instead of using a flat pick like this, where I'm a plectrum, where I'm going back and forth across the strings, strumming with one thing with my whole arm, I'm using all my digits at the same time. Now that means instead of 1 to 6, I've got a 5 to 6 ratio, but the fact is there's still 6 strings and 5 digits. I've got a thumb, which is always labeled T. Now in the classical world, they've got, because it comes from Italian and Spanish, the teachers they use those abbreviations from those. But in fingers. And the thumb is always on this hand, the scenes that's working backstage here, while the fingers are on the fretboard. So the same. Now if you can on the piano, you might be used to hearing the thumbs be 1, 5. Our assignment of how they're being used is different. Okay. So what I do first off is I find a home position. And let me just check in here for something. Let's see if that helps. I had to make a little setting change to see if that helps. The home position for me is that my thumb plays the bottom 3 strings, the E, A, and D strings, and my first finger is playing the G string. My second finger is playing the B string. My third finger, or my ring finger, is playing the high E string. And that way the thumbs are doing these 3 things, the first 3 fingers are doing the other things. So that's the home position that I use. Hey, George. Now, you don't need to use anything on your fingers besides your fingers. I have trouble growing nails. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I'm even, I'm doing better. This one's got a little bit longer nail, this thumb, but this thumb always splits right in the middle. It seems like just what happens. And I've tried eating gelatin, and I've tried the special classical stuff that you put on there, and fingernail polish. I've tried all these things. And what I end up doing is using a Fred Kelly speed pick on my thumb. It's got a nice little tab that absorbs a lot of the shock. I could never use regular thumb picks because it always felt like they were pulling my thumb out of its joint. And then I've got these Fred Kelly Freedom picks. Now I first saw them as these things that kind of look like you're in a Woody Allen movie. They come in both color or plain, clear, or white. White lets you see what I'm doing with my fingers better. Normally, I'm wearing the clear ones, which you can barely see. It just looks like your finger for the most part. I've tried the other finger picks. Whatever works for you is what's important. The reason I like these is because they imitate my fingernail that I can't grow. If you look at my nail sideways, this is about where my nail would come out if I could grow my nails, but I can't. So this is where it is. And in my absolute beginning fingerstyle steps, I'm getting used to using all the fingers and all the strings. And that's, if you're having a problem with this class, with that, I take a look at the fingerstyle classes that I have. Jim Deeming has classes, Eve Goldberg. There's a lot of fingerstyle players that teach on jam play. And I encourage you to go find whatever it needs, whoever works best with you to help you get comfortable, so that we can do what we're doing next, because this assumes some skills. I'm just reviewing that I have a home position. My thumb is playing the bottom 3 strings most of the time. That's first finger on the G string, second finger on the B, third finger or the ring finger on the high E string. And the thumb ends up doing this thing. And in my fingerstyle series, in the regular classes on jam play, I do a bunch of, I call them thumb builder exercises, so I can get used to when I'm playing different chords with my left hand, I just let my thumb go back and forth and play an alternating bass, sometimes called Travis picking. I'm doing what the thumb stereotypically does in that place. And then I'm answering with my fingers on the other place. So if this is unfamiliar to you, this is the first thing you're going to want to do. Otherwise, here's what the problem I ran into, and if I forget my home position, I still run into. I'm having to process, where are my fingers on the chord shapes are over here, or what am I doing with my left hand to create the pitches I want to? And with the right hand, I've got to figure out what finger is playing what. So for the purpose of having a home position for my fingers is now anything on the G string, my first finger knows it's its job. Anything on the B string, my second finger says that's me. Anything on the high E string, my ring finger says that's me. So instead of having to think which finger should play what, if they're always in the same position, then I let my thumb do the other kind of things. That's a good home place. So I keep that as my home position. I will leave home sometimes. I will move my hands all the way across. And there's a question that's a good question. Do I anchor with my pinky? There are times when I do, and there are times when I don't. The thing that does happen is if I'm anchoring with my pinky, there is a tendon that is shared between the pinky and the ring finger, just like there's one shared between the ring finger and the second finger, that if one is down, well, actually, if the ring finger's down, it's a little harder to move the other two. And so what I'm trying to do is, when I need to know where I am, I do anchor with my pinky. If I feel like it's restricting my ring finger movement, I lift up. Now, the other thing that helps my hand stay in position is, I don't know if you can see the mark on my arm right here. This is where it's resting. My guitar this is the way I play. Whether I'm standing or sitting, I use a strap. Sometimes I'll pick it up without a strap, but I leave it like this for a reason. I discovered when I was playing at home, if I sat down and played in all kinds of different ways, as soon as I stood up and put the strap on, the guitar went to a classical position. When I'm playing classical guitar, I have it in this position. When I stand up, if the strap is in this position, I don't have a change between what I practiced when I sat down. When I don't really have a position that feels comfortable, I get used to doing this when I sit down. When I stand up, my guitar's in a new position. So it's like I'm learning a brand new thing when I get to that other place. And that's not going to be helpful for me. I'd like to have it all be the same. So by using the strap, and it's connected to the tail of the, sorry about that microphone, connected to the tail of the neck here, that holds it in the position that I want it to be in, which is at a 45-degree angle, in the way I would play classical guitar. Now, by having my arm resting against the body of the guitar here, I don't need my left hand is not supporting the neck in any way. It's just going where it needs to. My right hand is kind of hovering a little bit over the sound hole. It's about ready to be where it wants to be to play. So I don't need to have the pinky to know where I am. I sometimes like that. So that is the discussion about what goes behind how I make my decisions to do this. And now, because I'm playing sitting down in this position, when I stand up, guitar's in the same position, and my hands and my fingers are addressing the strings in the same way they were before. So I'm not having to adapt or adjust very much, and that helps everything. That decreases the challenges I have, because I'm practicing in one position, I'm practicing in the other position, and my hand's always addressing in the same place. Now, there are a couple other questions here. Do plastic strings work better for this? Nylon or plastic strings on your guitar for a classical guitar work just fine. Let me grab mine. So I'm using the classical guitar. The tone is different. The strings are a little bit wider spaced. The strings are bigger. I like the tone of this. But when I recorded the tune I was just playing between the tracks for my newest recording, which is the title of that recording, Between the Tracks, I liked the little ragtimey, the clarity of the ragtime kind of sound, which is much more on a steel string guitar. But there are subtle differences between what's happening, not really big differences. But either one work. And there is one comment or a question about what happens if you have a nail bed that's been damaged with an injury, and so the nail grows with a split and can't be fixed. And that's where I don't know anything more about nail health than I can't grow them. And so I use these picks. And these are called, let me type them in for Jeff. There is a place on my website where I have them for sale. Not everybody carries them, but you can find them online. Fred Kelly, not Fed Kelly. Sorry here, Jeff, just a second. Freedom Picks. And Fred
Kelly, Freedom Picks.
Pick is the thumb pick. Finger picks are freedom picks. The thumb pick is the speed. So that's what I use. These can also be adjusted. They come in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. And the quick pick or the speed pick comes in 3 different colors, and they're not different sizes, but they are different thicknesses or weights. The white ones are the heavy. I use the orange, which is medium, and the yellow is light. So like you'd have flat picks that are light, middle, and heavy gauge. It's the same idea. They one size fits all for these because they're open on the one end. And these can be, these come in small, medium, and large. I use larges for all of my fingers. I've had people, I sell these at festivals, and people will test and they'll say, well, I got 3 different fingers. I got arthritis in this one. And they figure out what works best for their hand. They don't make extra large. But what you can do is like a football mouthpiece, you dip it into the boiling water or the hot water and reshape them to fit your finger. Okay, so now what we want to do is, Jeff, can you put up our graphic for Paw Paw Patch? Because this gets us in the direction of, we've got these basic kind of things, but I want to demonstrate, and this will be our homework for next week. Now this is also available in the practice. You can download it as a file. It's here as a Guitar Pro file. But you can see that as you look at this, that there are stems going up and stems going down. And in the tablature, you can see that the stem going down part is just a regular thing. That's the bass. And that's what I'm doing with my thumb. And if you look at the chords at the very beginning, you can see there's a C/G chord. When I'm playing this pattern where I'm going back and forth, C on the A string, which is the 3rd fret, E on the D string, the 2nd fret, and I'm going down to the G on the bass string. If I put my fingers in this C/G shape, where I'm covering both those notes, I don't have to do anything with my left hand. That lets me concentrate everything with what's going on in my right hand. Picking up paws, putting them. Now I need to move my left hand to get a regular C with a high. I need the high G up here. So I do have to make a shift, so I'm doing a little bit of changing with my left hand. The big thing is what's going on here. That's very tiny print when I look at it on the screen. I'm going to look at what I have here. So the thumb, and here's what I suggest doing, because when we're getting toward this putting it all together, is breaking it up. And that's one reason to have the stems go up and the stems go down. The melody might be what you're more familiar with, so let's do that. It's going to use all 3 of my fingers in their home position. That's all on the B string, all my 2nd finger. So far I've only used my middle finger and my ring finger, my 2nd and 3rd fingers. Picking up paws, putting them in your pocket. Now I'm changing chords. When I get to that G, that's the open G string at the end of the 1st line, that's the first time my index finger has worked. Now it can be tempting when sorting it out to just go, I want to do it all with my thumb, because I trust my thumb the most. But if you want to do the other part, I'm going to encourage you to try the more difficult thing right now. It feels unusual. Next line. So I did everything just with the stems going up. Although I did add something right there, didn't I? I played the name of the chord at the beginning of the measure, which is actually step 2. So I did step 2 at the step 1 place. I'm going to try to go backwards and only do that part of the fingers. So that's what we're doing. Why don't you do it with me? Here we go. A little bit slower. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in the pocket. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. Way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Again, picking up pawpaws, putting them in the pocket. Picking up pawpaws, putting in your pocket. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. Way, way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Again, let's do it again. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. Way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Now, are there any questions that you have about just playing with the home position and playing the melody straight up? Is there anybody that doesn't understand what I'm doing? I'm looking at the stems up notes, which are also the ones that in the tablature match the timing. So 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 is the first measure. 0 0 3 3 0 1. That's what's going on in the stems up part of the tablature. Now you noticed I made some mistakes in there. Did I stop and stomp around and tell myself I was no good? No. I mean, that's going on in my head all the time, just like I bet it's going on in your head. Every one of us has this person in a white coat who's got a clipboard telling us, you're no good. I don't even know why you're trying this. You're wasting your time. They got a running commentary in the back of your brain. And I've tried to banish that person, but it turns out it's part of me. I give them an assignment. I say, thank you. I need that information. Take it in, write it down, take notes. But go stand over in the corner and give me the notes later. I want to read the report. I can't deal with a running commentary. That's the way I do that little trick in my head to keep people from, to keep all the voices in my head from keeping me from playing. Okay, so that's the first step. Just play the stems up, just play the melody. Now let's take a look at the stems down, which are the bass. They're happening less often than the melody, and that's typical in this style of playing. I want you to look at my left hand. I've made myself have the C over G, C/G chord shape. And I've been doing this for so long, it just feels like a natural place for me to go. This would be the usual place I'd play the C, or I might play the C with these fingers. Here's where I play the C. The G I might change for different fingers. But I'm moving my ring finger over to the bass in the 3rd fret, and my pinky is playing on the 3rd fret where my ring finger had been. And then I'm just alternating all the low 3 strings with my thumb, starting on A string, D string, E string, D string, A string. So my thumb is doing this at a regular pace. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. And when it's time to change to the G string, I will probably use this shape of G. It's very easy for going back and forth between G and C. So it's the shape where my 2nd finger stays right in the same fret. It's on the 2nd fret, but on the A string instead of the D string. And my 3rd finger is playing on the low E, and my pinky's on the high E. That's the shape of G I'm using. So I'll do this first. I'm doing the same thing. Hey Theo James, welcome here. My thumb is doing the same thing on the same strings. And this is one of those things to tuck away for the future. When you're playing in C, because the C and well, that's not true. I gotta say that differently. My fingers are in the same frets, but my left hand is doing something a little bit different, and that is based on where is the lowest note in the name of the chord. So when I'm playing a C chord, I want the C to be the first thing I play. C, E, G, E, C, E, G, E, C, E, G, E, C, E, G, E. When it's time for the G, G, D, B, D, G, D, B, D. So the thumb is now in the lowest E, the low E string. And one of the things you can do is just practice doing this, bouncing with your thumb. And it means I slightly alter my pattern. Instead of starting on the A string when I do, which I do when I'm playing the C chord, I start on the low E string to play the G chord, with the G being first. While we're doing this, and this is the kind of thing that you can just keep on doing while you talk, like I'm doing, there's a question: how long does each live lesson last? These are hour-long sessions. We spend not all of it instruction. We spend time doing these practices and answering questions. So the overall session goes for 10 weeks. We're starting today. And what we're doing in the paw-paw patch, which is up on the screen, is we're doing only the stems down notes. Now we're not playing through. You'll notice I'm not playing the song. I'm just alternating between the chords because I want my left hand to feel comfortable holding that, while my right hand just goes back and forth. The exercises I recommend, this is a good question for how to be able to do this without looking and seeing what's going on, is first off, use a mirror. If you can find a mirror in your house, sometimes it's the bathroom, sometimes it's a bedroom with a dresser, someplace you're standing up, doesn't matter. Find a mirror so you can watch what's going on with your fingers without having to tip your head and give yourself a neck ache and give yourself bad posture, which is going to slow down how long you can play, or it's going to shorten how much you can play. Now, after that, the exercises are the thumb builder exercises that I have demonstrated several of. I've got 54 of these things, but the beginning of that whole process is in the Fingerstyle lessons that are in, I think it's under genre in the level 2. So go there and look and just scroll down until you see the thumb builder exercises, and you'll see them demonstrated there. So what we've been doing with Paw Paw Patch is we played the melody with the fingers. We're playing the backup with the thumb. Now let's go to stage 2, which is where I only play the thumb at the beginning of the measure, and I play the melody the rest of the way through. So let me demonstrate. We're at the very beginning. Picking up paw-paws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up paw-paws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up paw-paws, putting them in your pocket. Way down yonder in the paw-paw patch. So I'm not playing everything that's happening. You could take a highlighter and say, as a reminder, I'm going to highlight this and this and this and this. Just as a reminder, is here's where I'm going to play the bass. Mine looks a little bit different because this is my older version in Finale instead of Guitar Pro. But I just highlighted to remind myself I'm only going to play the bass note when it's time. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Guitar Pretender. So what we're doing is isolating things, and we're starting to put it together instead of trying to just get stuck on the first measure and giving up. We're isolating things and separating, and then we're putting all the pieces back together in a way that can make sense for us. The second thing I can do is say I'm only going to play on the first and the third beats of the measure with my thumb. And I'm using a different color for this. So I used yellow to mark out where the third beat is. I'm only going to play the bass on these places that's in that half of the measure. So that sounds like this. See you, Theo. Now in this case, the second to last measure, that one sounds weird. But that's because it's part of the walking thing that's happening as we walk up. Now there is a question about when I'm playing the bass notes. When I'm playing bass notes, do I have an issue with alternating between the E string and the A string with my ring finger instead of forming the G string? And I think you're talking about what's going on in the left hand. I think that's what you're asking about. Is that correct? So when I started, of course I had a problem with that. Because it was foreign, it was unusual. I'm sorry, I was looking at the question and thinking about playing at the same time. The question is, how do I choose between the CG and alternating the fingers between? And that's because do I need my pinky to do something else? So in the first measure, I don't. Now I need my pinky to play the high G string while everything else stays put in the second measure. When I get to the G, I need my pinky to play the D on the third fret. I need my pinky again. So in the first measure, I never do. In the second measure, I always do. So, okay. So I'm making my decision based on what does my melody note have to do next. And so sometimes I will learn as I'm separating this up. And that's one thing that people are afraid of, I think. As I'm dividing things up and doing this piece and doing this piece, when I come back together, sometimes they don't all go together as smoothly as I want. It's like taking two pieces and you're in the wood shop and you have to sand the one down for them to fit. I might have to change what I worked on, but I'm not in my process, it's not faster to try to sit down and do it all at once than to break it up. It probably takes about the same time, but it actually gives me more, I have a better feeling of confidence and capacity and less feeling like this is ridiculous and I should never even try this, which is what tends to happen when I try to read it all at once. as an example, I get Acoustic Guitar Magazine, and the current issue is about Reverend Gary Davis, and I'm really interested in that. I love his playing and the tablature samples from all the different songs that the writer is talking about. Somebody who spent a lot of time with him is like, as I'm looking, I'm thinking, uh-oh, I'm starting to jump into that. I want to do it all at once, and I'm going to have a problem. And so it doesn't matter. I've been playing for almost 50 years, and I still want to do it that way. And it isn't the best way for me to do it. So the hunger to get it all right away is there. And I always say the I want to is the most important part. The I wanna is what makes us even try. And it makes us keep trying when we run into some difficulties and obstacles. Now, the next step is taking this quarter note pattern that's going on with our bass and that's what it does for the first three lines, or the first three phrases of the music. Picking up paws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up paws, putting them in your pocket. Picking up paws, putting them in your pocket. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Now that measure 7, which is just before the end, is something completely out of the frame of what we've been doing. So don't worry if that's the hardest part. That's probably going to be the hardest part because it takes us out of the pattern. But don't give up because you've got the house built, but there's no door. You haven't put the front door in. You've got a hole for the door. What we're doing is making room for the door so we can go back and put in a fancy door. Now, from a music theory question or expectation, let's just think about this for a minute. This moving back and forth is a typical bass bump. The joke is, how many bass players does it take to change a light bulb? 1 5 1 5 1 5 1 5. So you're often in the bass, you're often just going between the first and the fifth step of whatever chord it is you're playing. Now, as I was playing through there, you might have noticed that I didn't exactly play what was written here. The benefit of playing out of a chord shape like this is I've put up available to myself, even though I'm only using two things at the same time. If you'll notice, there's never more than two things playing in this particular arrangement at the same time. There's two fingers playing, but every finger is ready to play some note that would be part of the chord. And that's one of those, I think going back to there's 5 digits and 6 strings, we can get overwhelmed. If we tighten things up our understanding of what's going on in the guitar, there's only 3 notes to make a chord. I've got an E, or if I cover that string, a G. I got a C, an E, and G, a C, and an E. That's what I've got available when I finger this C chord. I've got a G, B, D, G, B, G, or if I'm using the shape where I need the D here on the B string, I'm making available to myself all the notes in the chord. Well, the melody is built on the notes of the chord. This is a skipping melody. We're not playing stepwise motion until the very end, where we're walking down. That's the only place we're playing a step motion. Everything else is a skip. Skip, 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 or now step. Skip, skip, skip. Now we walk down and walk up at the same time. So if we have no questions about what we've just been doing, putting these pieces together, let me just pause and review for a minute. We separated and played the melody with our fingers. We played the bass with our thumb. We played the melody with only the bass happening at the beginning of the measure. That was the orange notes. And then we played the melody with the bass happening on the first and the third beat of the measure. And then we started putting it all together. So I've gone through the song a lot of times as I do that. And that's the key. We're building up muscle memory, and there's only one way to do it. You can't phone that in. You can't put it on like a book under your head at night and expect to get the knowledge. This is about teaching your fingers to do something so commonly over and over again that you don't have to think about every motion anymore. You're not thinking about which finger. And the beauty for me of playing fingerstyle guitar is when I can get to the place that I can pick up a song that I've loved. I've not studied it, but because my fingers are comfortable doing this, and I can finally do it. I couldn't, it was, maybe about 6 years ago, I realized, look what's happening. I can pick up a song that I know in my head that I play the chords for, but I can start picking out the melody. I wasn't focused on doing that all along. I think if I had been, it would have come sooner, but it can happen. You can get to the place where you can start finding these things. Now, it helps that I have students that ask, and that helped me focus my attention so that I get better at it the more I do it. And that's, I guess, the point of what I'm saying. The muscle memory, it only happens when you do it. And again, doing this one time a day will get you something. If you can do it for 20 minutes every day, that'll get you something. If you can do 3 10-minute sessions in one day, that'll do better than 1 hour-long session in a day. And then wait. Sometimes our lives are such that we can't get back to the guitar. We have all kinds of things that get us, we want to do it, but it gets in our way. If we can do a lot of small sessions, it's your brain is saying, holy smokes, they're serious about this. I better really focus on this. And the brain gives us some more storage space, so we don't have to be thinking about every motion, and it gets more, that's muscle memory. You're rewiring connections. There's a question, am I focusing on my cadence when singing along or more on the guitar changes? I'm unclear about your use of the word cadence. Cadence can mean what is the end progression. And I don't think that's what you mean. I think you're wondering, am I thinking about the rhythm of the guitar, or am I thinking about the song? And for me, I'm choosing familiar tunes like this because the songs I've known the longest, I have a good idea of how they go. I don't have to try to learn that tune and put everything else with it. And so I would say I'm letting my knowledge of the song carry me through the rest of it. There was another question about how much music theory is needed in order to arrange melodic fingerstyle. You certainly need to know, here's the parts of music theory that I think you need to know. You need to know the chord shapes. You need to know where the bass notes of the chord are. So I'm playing a C chord. I need to at least know where in this shape can I find the lowest note I need that's going to be my bass note. In a G chord, it's on my bass string, my low E, under my third finger. On a C, it's on the A string, under my third finger. On an E, it's on the low E string. On an A, it's on the A string. On a D, it's on the D string. But now my lowest note is halfway into the middle of the guitar. So I do have to be aware of what other things am I playing that are below that. And it's possible to play the fifth of the chord below the melody, or below the tonic. Which is what I'm actually doing when I'm playing the C. So a rule of thumb that might be one of those helpful little theory gems to tuck away is when I'm playing any chord where the lowest note in the chord shape I'm using is on the E string, that's always going to be the lowest. I'm going to find the fifth somewhere else in the guitar. And when I'm using the E shape, whether it's a bar chord, the fifth is going to be on the A string. If I'm using, and I'm using the G shape, it's going to be on the D string. I'm going to have to skip a string, which is what you notice is happening when I do the G chord here. So if you're used to playing the G, if you use the G shape bar chord as you move up, you're going to go from whatever's on the lowest string to the D string, the same as you would in an open position. If my melody, if the name of my chord is on the A string, like for an A chord it is, my fifth is going to be on either side of what I'm playing. If it's a C chord, it's going to be below. If it's a B, if I'm using the A-shaped bar chord, it's only going to be below, and the B is part of that stuff. It's only going to be below. All right, no, actually, it's going to be above too. And if my melody note is, or my bass note, the name of the chord is on a D, in the D shape, I can find it on either side of the D. But that means now I'm using a pointer finger instead of a G. Okay, let's get back to our song because we have that one hard measure, or we've got dual walking going on. I talked about a stepwise walk down. This is measure 7. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Now, what's going on in the bass is a walk up. Way down yonder in the paw patch. I'm doing a chromatic walk up. Not completely chromatic, but I've gone from G, A, B flat, B, C. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Now it sounds really cool, and this is something that does happen in a lot of fingerstyle, where they'll put in this beautiful contrary motion. I'm taking apart. Way down yonder in the paw patch. Now to put them together, I've got the G shape I would normally do, and I'm playing what would be like a G7 shape, but I don't need anything else, just the first finger. Now this is the weird one. We haven't done a 1 on the first fret of the A ever. And then I get to what would be part of the G shape. You can do that with your third finger. You can do it with your pinky. I guess I do more often do it with my third finger. Whichever one feels more comfortable after you try it 20 times. When I take them apart, I'm thinking about my muscle memory and it slows everything down. So that's the next thing. And I would woodshed that piece. Do you know the phrase woodshedding, where you take it out and you play it in the woodshed where no one can hear it? I'd woodshed that measure and then put it back in. Okay, another question. I often find myself following the same picking and rhythmic patterns when playing different songs. Or any suggestions on how to avoid that, or what to practice to get more variety in my muscle memory? This is what's interesting. If you don't have a home position that feels comfortable or your go-to fingerstyle, you're going to need to get that. And so the question is actually for someone who's Calvin's already got that and is using it and feeling tired. And I know what you mean. You're getting there and it's like, oh, I'm doing the same thing all the time. That's why I love in the Acoustic Guitar Magazine, the article about Reverend Gary Davis is he was not playing the bass note first. In at least one of the examples, he was, I can't remember the name of the song now. I haven't played it. I was just reading it. I haven't played it yet. But the thing that was noticeable was he did not start with the bass note first. That is the typical way, and it's the way I recommend you do it when you're building your arrangements. But then finding a different way to do the same thing is how to get out of that. Now, let me see if I can demonstrate this for you, Jeffrey. Not Jeffrey, I'm Calvin. So... I mistakenly called this between the tracks. This is really traded my thyroid in. So at the beginning, I'm doing the same pattern I'm used to. So I played it that way with nothing else for a really long time, and I got bored with it. So then I thought, what happens if I put the melody in the bass? And so now I do... And then... I got to get into the song. Yeah, here. And when I get to the B section, I play it in the same place. But what I did was I had played the melody always on. So I thought, what if I change where the melody is? Which meant I had to change my chord shapes and I had to do different things. So it completely took it out of, this is my stereotype. And I thought I did it in that octave. What happens if I... So when I did it that way and put it up the neck and played the melody an octave higher, it made me change my right hand enough that when I came back to what felt familiar, it felt comfortable and the other stuff felt exotic and I felt comfortable playing the song. And that's when the song finally got finished. Up until then, it was a bunch of themes that I really liked. So that's what I suggest is take something that you're very familiar with, that you're used to the same pattern, take the same song and see if you can put the melody in the bass, move it up an octave and play it up the neck. The other thing is to try playing it in a new key. That might change what's going on in your right hand too. Okay, so here's a couple other questions that I want to make sure we address. If the strap is tied at the head stock of the guitar, does it still work? It does, but for me, the reason I don't like that is because then the guitar tends to slide. When I'm at this angle, gravity tends to take over and it slides, so then I'm playing with it straight up and down. That's why I went with the heel strap instead of if it's at the head strap. And does my right arm go numb is another question. I have not ever had that happen. What tends to happen is this shoulder, because I'm doing this a lot, gets numb. Or my elbow, my my chiropractor says I have guitar player elbow because I can't really straighten this elbow out. I do exercises all the time to try to stretch it as much as possible, but I've got it in this position for the instruments that I play, as long as I play, that I can't quite get it all straightened out. So we've been working on that for some time. So, homework. You need to have some homework. My suggestion is you record yourself playing this as a first week thing. And you can use the Jam Chat place as a way where you can click on the camera and record yourself. This is not something anybody else needs to see. I'd be glad to look at anything you send me, but you don't have to. This is just for your purpose to have a comparison, because as we work through the class, it can feel overwhelming, and you might say, I'm never going to get this, I'm never going to get this. And I'd like you to be able to go back to where you were when you started to figure out, to notice, this isn't as hard or difficult as I thought it was, because I'm doing what I couldn't do before. That's the baseline. So record yourself this week playing this tune. You could record just doing the fingers. You can record just doing the thumb. You can record putting it together. But then as we move through the class, I'm going to invite you to do it again so that you can compare what week 2, week 3, etc. happens. And we're going to have some other songs. Now, play the melody, stems up, those just with your fingers, play the bass, moving around, then put the things together. You can do that intermediate step of only playing the orange times with the bass and only playing the orange and the yellow times, and then put it all together. But make it a stepwise practice. Do this in short sessions. Do it often in a day, and then come back and see us next week. Question, can I just play the bass note to try to figure out which chord is being used? Yes, certainly. Now, as we get to creating the arrangements, we're going to talk about how do I decide what key do I want to play this in? Is there a key that is going to make this song actually fit better on the guitar or lay better on the guitar, is the way I talk about it. And we're going to do some comparison of the same song in 3 different keys to feel how that feels, because sometimes there's a song we really like it, we like to sing in a particular key, but when we go to play it, we can't play what we want to play in the key that we can sing in at the same time, and we have to make some decisions at that point. Well, this has been fun. I hope that you find it valuable. Remember that if it feels like what we're doing is way over your head, then go back and take a look at the fingerstyle lessons that I teach or other people teach on Jam Play. If you feel like this is going too slow, then find a different tune and try the same process. And give yourself the go to the head of the class challenge opportunity. And do your homework. Next week we're gonna have a nice little challenge, and so get ready. This wasn't a challenge. It's good to have you all here, Sugary and Guitar Pretender and Jay Bird and Mopar, and there's a few other people I just want to take off my picks because the trackpad doesn't work so good when I scroll with picks. George 2 and BDQ Dad Acoustic and Theo James and and Diver Jammer and the people that I'm not seeing because you're viewing the class on social media. Thanks for joining in. It's really good. And thanks to Jamplay for figuring out how to do these live classes in a remote way. Scav Arts. We'll see you all next week.